All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Today's movie, the tagline goes like this. This time, it's war. What do you think about that tagline, bro?
I mean, it's great, but I would prefer like game over, man. Game over.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, stay to your seats because Movie Bite starts now. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another exciting episode of Movie by Podcast. I sincerely apologize for not being on Monday because of social media, things
We blame
happen, and
Facebook.
Mark Zuckerberg, man, at it again. But hey, here we are again at a special time, special day, and we have a special guest. But before we introduce our guest, I am Ruben, your host, and with me, my brother in arms, the Russian. All right, how you doing today, bro?
I'm good. I was gonna do the drum roll.
All right, drum roll for our special guest. This is our buddy of ours, co-worker of ours. He is the ultimate fan of this franchise, and it's particularly about this movie. Let everybody a round of applause to our friend, Alex.
Hey guys, what's going on?
Hey, welcome.
Welcome to Movie Bite, Alex.
Fun to be here.
It's very exciting to have you here. We talk about movies on a daily basis. Finally, we got you on the show. What's up, Pablo? Now we're talking movies, and today's movie is Aliens.
Aliens, 1986 Aliens.
1986. I'll be the first one to admit I was really skeptical about this one because the way I remembered the movie when I watched it originally was not the same way like I experienced it just watching it recently. So I apologize to both of you. I thought that this is not as good as the original Alien, but I think it's close. It's two different. It's completely different movies. We're gonna break it down, and we're gonna talk about it in depth. So let's go, guys.
Perfect. So, Alex, tell us like why do you enjoy this franchise so much, and what do you think about what do you think before we go deeper into this about Aliens, the movie we're gonna be talking about? Like, why do you like this franchise so much? Let's talk about that.
This franchise, in Aliens in particular, is one of the best combinations of all these things that we consider to be tropes now. Things have been done to death over and over. The likable squad, the strong female character, that was all done first, and as well as it was done in Alien and Aliens. Those two films trailblazed so many popular ideas that are seen now as passé, but they weren't back then. And you see so many cheap imitations of it, but nothing is done ever the same way. I think what makes Aliens unique is that this movie was made not to make money, but it was made because people wanted to make the movie, and it really, really shows.
Yeah, and the guy behind it, James Cameron. I mean, he pushed for it. He fought for the Sigourney Weaver to be a main character. I mean, he wanted Ripley to be a part of the Aliens, and at the time, she asked for, I believe it was $1 million that she wanted to be paid, and the studio was like, "No, we're not paying that money, for anybody." So they wanted somebody else, or they wanted to write her off, and James Cameron stood by his guns and said, "No, you're gonna pay her, and I want her in this movie." And she got the nomination, Oscar nomination. I know
First actress to be nominated in a sci-fi movie, also.
And I mean, let's break it down. It's a sci-fi action, okay? And I went down and I looked in the past 40 years for the actresses to be nominated for the role in a sci-fi or action movie. There's only few, and one of them is Sandra Bullock for Gravity. So if we have to throw it out there. Okay. Casino, Sharon Stone got nominated. I mean, I consider it sort of action, gangster drama, but still.
I'll give it to you. I was gonna be like, wait a minute, that's not sci-fi. Why are you talking about Sharon Stone? I'll give it to you in the action gangster.
Action flick. And the last one, which I can find, was Jessica Chastain for Zero Dark 30, which was directed by Catherine Bigelow, which was at some time the wife of James Cameron.
She was married to James Cameron, absolutely. Yeah.
And she actually worked in the movie, so.
Yeah.
See, everything ties together.
It's yeah.
It's
All right, so a little bit of movie details. Obviously, this movie was released in 1986, years later after the first Alien came out, directed by Ridley Scott. Box office number, this movie opened number 1 on July 18th of 1986. I believe it made about 10 million, the weekend box office beating The Karate Kid Part 2 after being the number 1 movie a weekend before, so it brought down. And it was a very popular summer. We were talking about like summer. That summer was like Top Gun was released, and Karate Kid Part 2, and then to have a sci-fi movie of this, like fans were waiting for. Like Fox was really hoping, like, hey, let's hope this pays off. Like we really need a hit. And today, like a lot of people say that this movie saved Fox Studios. Because of the numbers that it did. So Alex, I believe you have some details you want to share about the movie overall. Like what do you have for the crowd here about the movie?
Yeah, I mean, well, that's a broad way to throw that on me, but
I mean,
let's like
on this one.
Like what do you like as far as like box office numbers or like the competition was released? Do you have anything to add on?
So the movie itself, it made gross $130 million, which doesn't sound like much, but in 1986, but when adjusted for inflation, it's $327 million. Those are some serious numbers for the 1980s. I mean, now that seems kind of quaint when you have your Marvel movies making $1 billion and whatever, but that kind of hype generation just wasn't there in the 80s. You basically had to operate off of trailers and word of mouth, and that was basically it. There wasn't this multi-tiered targeted campaign to get people in the movie theaters. So the movie was a massive success, which they did not really plan on, because the first Alien movie was considered to be a commercial failure. Even though it made its money back and everything, it didn't make their projections for it. So when they wanted to make the second one, everybody didn't want to touch it. Like, no, everyone saw the Alien as being a fluke of not, that magic can't be recreated. And Ridley Scott didn't want to touch it. He didn't want to do sequels at that time. And then James Cameron, he actually wrote this movie while he was making Terminator. Because while he was directing the first Terminator movie, they didn't think that was going to be successful. They thought it was going to be like a B movie, whatever, some generic sci-fi movie. And even Schwarzenegger didn't have that high of opinion of it before in pre-production. They actually had to push production back of Terminator 9 months because Schwarzenegger was busy. He was contractually obligated to do Conan the Barbarian at that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
James had a lot of free time to start writing other movies. And so this movie started off, when you look at it, at the script, there are definitely some similarities. There was like a strong female character. There's an alien species that's giving birth to like other aliens. There's a power loader fight, and the original script was called Mother. When you first brought that to studios, they said, okay, let's dress it up as something else, try to tie IP to it that people recognize. And then finally they said, okay, let's make other characters. And I forget who it was. I had it in my notes, but I lost it. Someone suggested, why don't you add soldier characters to the movies? You have more people than just the one character to relate to. And boom, they basically Aliens was born at that point. James Cameron wrote the new script in like a matter of a couple of days, wrote 45 pages out and brought it back to the studio, and they signed on for it. They kind of ate it up. And then that kind of ties into, well, he wanted Sigourney Weaver, but that was a big fight to get her, but obviously he did.
And I think like
awesome.
the story behind the soldiers were like they wanted to kind of touch on the Vietnam War, like how soldiers would react to and like what kind of the mentality that they had. So when they collected this group, it's you feel like it's like a war movie, but it's obviously it's in space and they're fighting against aliens, not
yeah. A lot of time the movies is called Vietnam in space, not just in like the aesthetic, because using a lot of like Vietnam era gear, like the steel pot helmets and stuff like that, but also you have this superior force, like the U.S. going out there and bug hunt, we're gonna stomp them, it's gonna be no problem,
right.
Just total wash, and then they get totally raked over the coals and like totally turns out how they didn't expect it to, similar to the Vietnam conflict. You go over there overconfident, and that didn't go very well for us either. So there's a lot of similarities between Vietnam and Aliens in every way, and I think it's interesting. And just like you're saying, they're modeling it after the Vietnam movies, which is funny because they were also filming Full Metal Jacket, I believe, at the same time, and there was a couple cast members that were on both of those at the same time, and barely even made it to the film due to scheduling conflicts.
Sweet. All right, so let's dig deeper into director of the film. Okay, Mr. James Cameron. Everybody knows now by fame, because of Titanic, the Avatar movies, Terminator, Terminator 2, True Lies. He makes great action movies, and then obviously James Cameron wanted to do something different. He made Titanic. He wanted to make the ultimate romance movie. He wanted not to become that stereotype director, right? And Titanic proved to be a big hit. So let's talk about Aliens, like James Cameron directing Aliens. Like, what's your take, Bykov, Russian?
I mean, it's masterfully crafted. For me, watching it, it just feels how much energy, passion, how much work got to produce the set, because none of it is CGI. Like back in the days, they couldn't use it. So it's all about the lighting, the proper usage of the camera, how you're gonna do the angles, how you want it to everything work out. Like I mean, the aliens themselves, they look fantastic, but it's at the end of the day, it's like the acrobats and in the costumes, crawling around. But it looks it looks scary. It looks like a aesthetic. It's not like the first one. In the first one, you barely see the alien, and it's more about like jump scares, and it's more about the tense and the pacing. In this one, it's like the aliens are there. They ripping people apart, and they're like present. And then you have the mother, the queen, the bee, the queen bee, but the yeah, showing up at the end, and it's you see how huge she is, how monstrous she is, and how the final fight between two mothers. Essentially, it's just monumental. But when you go back behind the scenes and you see how it was filmed, it's like it's so cheesy, so using the wires and all that. But it felt monumental, and I cannot distinguish where the small where the models come to play, and when they're using like the real stuff, real decorations, real sets. It's all very seamless. Like the big at the end there is a big explosion, and like it feels like there's something actually exploding behind them when Ripley like runs away, and to me it's like, how do you film it? Like, how do you make it? We're so used to the green screen nowadays that every special effect that you see in like the Marvel movie, you're like, there's 25 guys behind this one shot. They're just drawing it in. But in this movie, the director had to use a limited budget and his creativity. So, and that's how you make this masterpiece. Like, to me, directing is just, I guess it's amazing.
Yeah, I agree. Like the transition between full scale and small scale is just so perfectly done. It does help that they built a really big small scale set. I think it was all built to 1/6 scale, so they had to build everything around the remote control APC they built for those kind of scenes when the dropship comes in and drops it off. So the actual town itself, the colony, it's like the set itself is like 100 feet long. So it's big. They built a lot of it, and they used as much as they could for the flyover shots and walking through and compositing in the background. But you just can't tell. Like when you see the scene, the dropship come in and drop off the APC, and they get out of it. Like even for me looking at them, like I can barely tell when the cuts are made. Although there is an interesting part in that when the dropship first drops off the APC and the Marines, you can actually see the remote control pilot of the APC in the background. He's behind one of the buildings. You see his eyes, half his head. It's very, very like I honestly, after watching the movie like 100 times, I still barely even see it. But it's one of my funny little quirks of a mistake left in the movie that I don't think anybody caught in editing. But this movie was,
Well, there were actually a few mistakes that were made. Like one of them, like the big one that people caught up on the original DVD, or I guess tape release, when you have the android saving a nude at the end. By the way, spoilers. Like if you have not seen Aliens, please go see it. Do not be me. Learn from my mistake. It's a fantastic movie. It aged phenomenally. It's a great flick. It's entertaining, and go watch it. But spoilers. So at the end, when you see the android kill, I forgot who played the bishop. Lance
Henriksen, yeah.
Lance Henriksen. He's actually sticking, like he's coming out of this hole, and you can see the hole in the original. And then when they went to digital, they actually remastered it for Blu-ray, and it was cut off. And then you also can see when they're being attacked by aliens in the first encounter. when the guy gets like torched with a whatever that fire thing and falls off, there was like an actual foot of the somebody in
I
the
got the
crew.
fire extinguisher. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, there are a few core like every movie like it cannot be without a mistake.
I mean, I think
But,
that's
this
just
is, like, cherry
common in James Cameron movies.
yeah, so
Yeah, they're all
Yeah.
nitpicks. It's something that you will
Oh,
never
yeah.
see in your first watch or even
No.
second or third. Like I said, the guy's face is a straight up giant man in the scene, and you don't see it. Like even after 100 times, you just don't see it. It's crazy to me. Did you think the little piece of trivia when you brought up when Lance Henriksen, like as Bishop, is cut in half on the deck? They were using a dairy-based solution to make the white fluid around him, which they didn't do in Ridley Scott's film. In first Alien, they knew, like, well, we can't have giant studio lights pointing at dairy product. It's going to be disgusting in a couple of hours. And James Cameron did not know that, and they used a dairy-based product. So Lance Henriksen was sitting in this like pile of like disgusting milk that was like rotting stench, and he was trapped in this thing that he couldn't move for hours for that take, and nobody wanted to go by him. Every time someone had to buy him to hold their breath to give him notes or give him a bottle of water, apparently it stunk that badly, but he just championed it out. He did not complain at all.
Let's go.
I mean, I believe James
Ruben,
Cameron.
What is your take on since
I mean, James Cameron, like, I had the opportunity to learn more about like James Cameron's career. Listen to a podcast that they explore his, and the hassle he went through to get this movie made is amazing. You know, like obviously Alex has shared already details, but like from like the crew not wanting to work with him, him vowing to never set foot on Pinewood Studios ever again because he did not want to work with that crew at all ever again. Like people didn't believe in him because they all thought that he was just there because he was sleeping with the producer, which at that point he was married to producer Gail Ann Hurd, which she was producing this movie. But like a lot of people had little faith in him, and that's why Fox was wanting this to hopefully work out because the investors would have pulled out if this movie would have flopped, right? And they have very little faith in him, and they pretty much, like Alex said, like they told him, like, hey, you'll get the director job if Terminator is a hit, right? And Terminator ended up being a hit, and he got the director job, but at that point he wasn't sure he was going to be directing Aliens. He knew he was going to get the writing credit because it was a story, but he didn't know he was going to be directing. And I think he did a marvelous job. I think this movie's like launched him out there as the action director, and obviously he'd made on Terminator 2 in 1992, which is one of the best action films in the 90s. He did True Lies, and now he's working in the Avatar like film franchise. He's making like 7 Avatar films, right?
He can do whatever he wants now.
Yeah.
But it's James Cameron, there's an episode of South Park like they make fun of him of everything that he can do, and it's because he can look he made Titanic because he went underwater in a pressurized submarine to look at the remains of the Titanic, and he used that footage for the movie. Like, it's freaking James Cameron. He did an amazing job, and I feel like that's just why I pick Aliens, because for me it's my favorite out of that franchise. And I think it's one of the work that I appreciate James Cameron more as a director, not as the director that everybody knows for like Titanic or Terminator. I think I appreciate more his work on this film than anything else that he has done.
I think this and Terminator 2, people throw the term around visionary a lot, but like I would honestly say that James Cameron is a visionary director. And when he came to this movie, he came with like schematics, concept art, drawings. He had like drawn out like the dropships, the APCs, the marine weapons, armor. Like he, in his head, knew what everything is supposed to look like. Him and the Wachowskis have that in common, but they were like extremely visual. Like, hey, I know what I want my movie to look like, and because of that, he actually clashed. Like we're talking a lot with Pinewood Studios. Ended up firing a lot of his senior staff from Pinewood on work on a movie due to issues with like lighting. Like a cinematographer, Dick Bush, he was constantly changing the lights in the scenes. He was saying, it's got to be bright. We've got to show off these kind of cool sets we built. And James Cameron's like, no, I want it to be dark. It's a thematic movie. And every time he came back on set, the lights were bright again because this guy thought he knew better than James Cameron. So he fired him. He was replaced by Adrian Biddle. I'm not as familiar with him. And same thing for his assistant director. They kept resetting the shots the way he thought they were supposed to be shot. And then James going to come in and say, no, it's all wrong. And they lost days and days of shooting. So he fired him, too, after losing so many days of shooting. And then Pinewood, actually, staff walked out, like, in rebuttal to that. And basically, we barely got him back. And James Cameron's quote on Pinewood Studios was, quote, they were lazy, insolent, and arrogant. Like, he did not like that at all.
Did they ever work again? Anybody knows?
He did not work with Pinewood afterwards.
No, he hasn't stepped foot in Pinewood Studios in Orlando. London. Sorry, London. Yeah, that was the last time he worked in that studio.
All right. So next.
All right.
Let's talk.
So next category, acting. We got to talk about the acting in this film. Obviously, the talent and the great Sigourney Weaver is amazing in this movie, but there are other characters in this film, rising stars, and well-known actors that really stand out. So let's talk about the acting. So who wants to go first?
I mean, I wouldn't mind going first. This is
Let's go. It's
I mean, this is you're our guest. This is your show. Like, go on. This is your movie. Let's show the world.
What I love about this movie, it's a perfect mix of seasoned actors, character actors, and a lot of first timers. For a lot of people in this cast, especially like from the Marines and supporting cast, this is the first movie and sometimes only movie they've ever been in. But everyone does their job perfectly. No one overstays their welcome. Everyone's written to perfection, even though they weren't always cast the way they're supposed to be. One of my favorite characters, even though he's absolutely an awful person in movies, Paul Reiser playing Carter Burke. Yeah. He was cast because he was a friendly sitcom show character.
That's right. Yeah.
He was known as like the friendly dad and like the friendly neighborhood, and that kind of helps a lot to kind of paint his character as, oh, he's a good guy. Actually, believe him. You know, he works for a company, but he's really not a bad guy, and he's arguably the most evil character in the movie.
Can I just throw something? I'm not trying to steal your show, but when he calls Ripley kiddo in the first dialogue that they have together, I'm like, I hate this motherfucker. He's gonna be like, I already she
corporate scumbag.
Yeah, she just survived 57 years in space in a that hybrid chamber. Her daughter lived without her, died. She lost her crew, fought the alien, and you call this superhero a kiddo? What the fuck is wrong with you? I hated him off the gate.
He's a perfect character.
Yes.
He's easy to like and to hate, and that's the kind of character you like in a movie. It's not fun if it's black and white. I think he was the perfect pick for that. I absolutely love him in that movie. I mean, a lot of other people one of my favorite is Jeanette Goldstein playing Vasquez.
I got a problem with that character.
I recently
go on.
I recently rewatched that movie with my Colombian friend, and about halfway through the movie, I told him she's not Hispanic, right? He's like, what?
It's whitewashing at its best.
She did a great job in that role. That character is fantastic. I mean, you're right. It's a weird choice to pick a Jewish actress to play a Hispanic, gunslinger, but it somehow works in the movie.
I mean, it does, but
don't think about it. She does such a great job. They just kind of blends in. You're like, hey, whatever. That's the character.
I even told Bikubs the other day, that the act
2 cents, but I couldn't tell.
I was watching the movie with my wife. It was her first time, not first time. She's seen pieces of it, but entirely. And I told her that the actress playing Vasquez, she's not Hispanic. She's like, what? She's like, yeah, she's a Jewish actress. Her last name is Goldstein or something like that. And I pulled up a photo. I was like, this is her. I was like, oh my god. Yeah. So yeah, she's just a actress that they tanned in the 80s and pulled off an accent, and it works in the 80s. And nowadays that wouldn't work.
Yeah, right? Tanning and studying gang interviews to get that down.
But it works. It's 1986. It worked. It worked for James Cameron, and Ginny, the actress, did an amazing job.
Let's just those were the times.
And she went on to work with James Cameron multiple times later on. She was in Terminator 2.
In Terminator 2, she was
the stepmother of Sarah John Connor, the adopted parents, the foster parents.
She gets killed there, right?
Yep. And then she was in Titanic. She also gets killed in the Titanic. But she dies with her kids that get drowned and everything.
She gets killed in Aliens too. Okay, so
yeah. But yes. So going on, Alex.
One of my favorite things in the movie, the two characters is so Michael Biehn and Bill Paxton. I just love them in that movie. Michael Biehn was almost not in the movie. In fact, he wasn't even cast in that role or even asked to be in that role. It was actually James Remar is who they brought on to be Hicks.
Yes.
James Remar actually did a lot of principal photography. He did the initial training because they had all the actors go through like a boot camp with like the SAS and Marines to kind of know how to work together, make sure they use the weapons correctly. Because all the weapons used on set are live firing weapons with blanks, which are still dangerous. So they have to have all training for that. Well, James Remar was arrested for a drug possession. Oops. And asked to leave the production, and they were made as polite as possible. Said, "Oh, there's creative differences." And then a few days later, they brought in Michael Biehn, who basically had to adopt all of Remar's choices for his armor and whatever, and he didn't like them. Actually, he complained quite a bit. They actually had armor Terry English who designed all the armor for the Marines, and he had all the characters sit down and help customize their armor to make it look like they're personalized and like they're kind of ragtag bunch. Yeah, he wasn't even supposed to be in the movie, but in fact, there's actually a number, since principal photography already started with James Remar, there's actually a number of shots from behind that it is James Remar in the movie and not Michael Biehn. A lot of behind shots are actually not Michael Biehn, but you can't tell.
Did not know that.
And then Bill Paxton, he was not actually initially supposed to be Hudson. Actually, the actor who plays Gorman, William Hope, he was supposed to be Hudson. But he was written to be a more annoying character who didn't have a comedy role. He's supposed to be just kind of getting your nerves. But when they got him in, they said, okay, at least he's a little bit too serious, so they cast him as a lieutenant instead, which is a perfect role. And they brought in Bill Paxton, who had worked on Terminator 1. He got killed in the first scene by the Terminator. And when he kind of started ad-libbing, they're like, oh, we're going to rewrite your role to be a comic relief. And thus you have Hudson, who's arguably like one of the best sci-fi Marine characters ever written for a movie.
Yeah, completely agree.
I mean, Bill Paxton, man.
He has the best one-liners in that movie. Like,
Game over, man. Game over.
Most of them were ad-libbed, actually, which is really funny. He kind of made up while I was on the spot.
I mean, Bill Paxton was James Cameron considered him one of his closest friends. He went on to be in multiple movies. You know, he was in True Lies, Titanic. Unfortunately, he passed away a couple of years ago due to complications to a heart surgery, I believe. And he left a legacy. You know, Bill Paxton. You know, he left a legacy. Despite the small work he might have done, he left some good work behind him.
Definitely one of my favorite actors. Blends into a lot of roles. You know,
yeah,
character acting in terms of his face. You know,
I mean, Twister, man, like that's one of my favorite movies with him. And obviously, True Lies, he plays the sleazy car salesman that's impersonating a CIA agent, right? And I mean, True Lies is just an amazing movie. It sucks that they haven't been able to like release it on Blu-ray, and it's very hard to get, but it's a good movie.
Oh, and Predator 2. He was also a lieutenant in the police force.
That's right.
Him and Lance Henriksen are only two actors who can claim they were killed by a Terminator, an Alien, and a Predator. So that's their legacy.
Well,
that's right. Lance Henriksen wasn't the first Terminator. He played the one of the cops.
Yep.
Detectives. Yeah, I forgot. That's right. You know, it's funny because Lance Henriksen was going to retire from acting if he didn't get this part, I think.
Yeah,
or something like that. Right?
All his movies were just small flopping roles before that, and he was about to be done throwing the towel. He said, okay, I'm going to do this movie, and if it doesn't work out, I'm done acting. And of course, it ended up being like the best role he ever did, and you know, famous for it. He brought a lot of his own ideas to the movie, like the whole knife trick thing. That was something he could do as a personal skill.
Yeah, and I think when they put Bill Paxton's hands over it, that was improvised too. Like they caught Bill Paxton by surprise.
Yes, so that's his reaction when he's like, "Hey, man, that's a real catch." And then they had to
that's very cool.
The first time they did it, the sped up looked fake because people were moving in the background. So they do it again, and he actually caught Bill Paxton's pinky on the second take.
Yeah, I remember reading about that. Like Bill Paxton's reaction on that knife scene it's authentic. Like he is actually freaked out when they put his hand over his for the knife trick. Yeah, that was pretty cool. I mean, overall, the acting in this movie is everybody has. I mean, and it comes down to James Cameron's writing. Like you look into James Cameron's writing, and every character is essential to the story. and like to like Sigourney Weaver, to like Bill Paxton, Michael Biehn, Paul Reiser, even the actress that played Newt. You know, it was her only acting role of her career, and she became a teacher after that. But even Newt is essential to the plot of this entire movie. Like everybody puts a grain into this and makes this movie amazing. So acting in this movie is phenomenal. Well deserved nomination for Sigourney Weaver for her role because she really, really sells this movie as Ripley. You know,
I
and again, this is why I picked this movie.
It seemed obvious, you know, like she's just like, yeah, she just knocks it out of the park. Her character is perfect. Her acting is perfect. Like,
yeah,
just love her in that movie. Her and Michael Biehn have a great chemistry on screen and everything, and like, this movie really came together. What I love about this cast is of all the characters in Marines, there's only two of them don't have any real dialogue. They're both stuntmen. So they were barely on screen, but everyone else has something to contribute to the movie, which is really interesting to see in a movie that has like 12 characters in it. 12 main characters. Everyone does something, no matter how minor it is, other than two of them. So they really use their cast to the fullest. And even the other characters are supposed to have a bigger role. That they filmed with James Remar, and they cut those roles, of course, because James Remar was no longer in the movie.
Sweet. So let's talk about the screenplay. Let's talk about James Cameron screenplay. Like, what you got, Russian?
I mean, the plot it's perfect. Like, you have a setup, she doesn't. I mean, I'm not kidding. Like, I couldn't. I'm usually finding the plot holes in all of these things, and I'm empty. Like, I got nothing. It was first act, second act, and the finale, and it's all ties together. I only can, admire how well it's put together. I mean, I watched. I believe it was like the long version, like director's cut, or I did not watch the theatrical version this time.
You probably watched the re-release edition.
Right. And here, like,
Yeah.
We represented, from my understanding, with information that she's a mother, which we did not know in the first one, right? Am I right? Like, you guys have to like navigate me through these.
I don't believe they mentioned her daughter.
Yeah, they don't mention that in the first one. Yeah.
So here we know she's a mom, so she goes out there not really to kind of get her license back. Yeah, not really to get her license. I'll throw some shade in a bit. I'm not yet, but it's going to be more about the editing part and the way it was filmed. But anyway, so back to the plot. I mean, you have her as a strong female lead, strong female character, which like sounds nowadays as a cliche, like, because everybody wants to have one of those in their movies, like, but it's so natural for Sigourney Weaver and Ridley. Like, I don't see genders there. Like, it could have been a guy, it could have been a girl, but it doesn't really matter in this sense. Like, she plays to her strengths. Like, we care about her in this movie, not because like we cared about her surviving the previous one and getting all that experience, but here, like, she goes out there to save people or to kind of like help to navigate these Marines because she already been there. She has nightmares because of the alien, and like, she does not want to face them. She's obviously scared, petrified even, but she still goes. Like, it's just like, that's what heroes do. They go towards the danger to save the world, I guess. And what magnificent about, and you guys touched upon it, like the Newt character, that she becomes like her surrogate mother after her parents being abducted by the aliens and killed. And it's natural. Like, all it's written, it's not pushed on the audience. You make your own connection to the characters. Like, you feel for this little girl. Like, she's also scared, but she's scared for different reasons. And one of the best lines that she says, like, it broke. Like, I almost had the one tear going down when Ripley is trying to confront her. Like, go to sleep, it's okay. Look at the doll. Like, she doesn't have a nightmares, and the little girl Newt looks at her and says, she doesn't have nightmares because she's a piece of plastic. Like, and then to me it's like, wow, like, from this little girl to have such an understanding of the world. Like, you understand that she knows what's happening. She knows what these aliens are doing, and she's kind of like a best guide to these scared Marines. And Marines are like, at first they're like, we all macho men, macho women. We're gonna go out there, we're gonna kick some ass and take some names. And then they encounter the aliens, and they're like fucking scared shitless. They're like, "Let's leave. Let's go out of here. Screw these aliens. We just want to run out." Like, and Bill Paxton is like the best at it. He's like, "Game over, man. Game over. Like, let's go. Like, we need to get out of here." They're like, "When is the next ship is coming?" They're like, 17 days. He's like, 17 days? We ain't gonna survive 17 hours. And Ripley is like, "Calm down. This girl survived here for months on her own. Like, we can do this." So, I mean, the plot is just phenomenal, and the ending is fantastic. Like, if it wouldn't been for Newt, if it wouldn't been for Ripley's connection, she would not go out there. She would not find the Queen. She would not face the Queen. She would not burn all the freaking eggs, and she would not anger the Queen, and the Queen would not come out at her for this grand finale where, and to me, like the using of the props and to set you up is fantastic. Like in the movie, like in the beginning, when I think it's like in the first act when Ripley's like, "Hey, can I help somehow?" And they're like, "Yeah, you can move some cargo." And she's like, "Well, let me use this cargo mover, that yellow thing." I guess it's
the power loader, yeah.
Whatever it is, like the armor suit from freaking Fallout. Oh, not really, but she gets in, and you see her operate it, so it doesn't come to you as a surprise at the end when it lifts up and you see her in that thing.
Chekhov's gun.
Yeah, like, and another thing which, like, it was such a small detail, but it's like, yes, this is how you do it. When she goes into the Queen's the lair, she drops those the fiery things. I don't know what they're called, like the ones which you light up and
Flares.
Flamethrowers.
No, flares.
Flares.
Like the flares. So she drops them to find the way back, and it makes perfect sense. It's such a small, minor thing that you see. I know our audience. You drop the Fallout name, you get
and Paul just jumps in. Yeah,
Paul's there. See, I'm using my witchcraft. I'm getting the one way or another. I'm getting us views one way or another. Anyway, so to me, it's like, why do these these screenplay writers nowadays don't fucking use their logic? Like, just use your head. Like, we're not stupid. We understand what's happening. If you throw something out there which we have no connection to, we'll be like, "Oh, fuck you, you lost me." But here, you are engaged through entire plot, because everything is logical, everything is explained, everything is like has its purpose and has its reasoning behind it. Therefore, like, I'm like, I got nothing, like, except when the Queen grabs her in that power armor, I'm gonna call it that, and the light gets broken, and then at the end when they're like stuck in that shaft, the light is working again. So I mean, but who cares? It's a tiny thing. So I'm not even gonna cherry pick anything. But like, if anybody wants to write a screenplay, watch Aliens. See how easily it is to put everything together in perspective, and how easily it is to get us as a viewers to be engaged and to follow the characters and to like cheer for them, and like little girl, like nowadays, so they put a little girl in a movie and I'm supposed to care just because it's like it's a kid, but here she's put there for a reason. She's a moving piece that gets our main character to engage in this scenario. So like, and as Alex touched upon it, like the character building is magnificent. Like, everybody has a purpose, everybody has a line, everybody is different. Like, every character out there is you can deviate from somebody who's standing next to them. They do not like mesh together, and they're not like, this is just a group of 12 people. They all the same. They just Marines. Here, no, like he mentioned, like only 2, I guess, don't have like the lines, but everybody else, you know, to some degree why they're there, what they bring to the team, and how that's going to be used to fight these aliens. And obviously, like, our main villain, I already mentioned like him a little bit. Like, you understand his motivation. This guy wants to profit, and he wants to profit by throwing human lives at risk, and and you kind of like, all right, well, it's good enough for me. Like, I mean, some days nowadays these villains are just like, oh, I'm gonna do this because I want to fucking sell water in the desert. That's how I'm gonna fucking make profit. I'm the villain now. So yeah, plot, fantastic. I'm gonna let Alex to kind of add some.
So,
stuff
Alex,
to
what's your thought on the screenplay plot of the movie?
I mean, Russian touched up on a lot of it. I mean, this is a movie that I watch like probably every other month, whether it's social viewing or just by myself in the background. I really, really love this movie. And every time you watch it, you pick up a little bit more and more and more, and kind of, like I said, everything flows together. Every scene has a purpose. This is one of those times where, to me, the director's cut is a straight up improvement over the standard theatrical version. In fact, when the movie came out on the original VHS home release, it came out as a theatrical cut. There was no, oh, sorry, it came out as a director's cut. There was no theatrical cut on VHS initially. It came out years later. So a lot of people, the first time they saw the movie was the special edition with the extra scenes in there, the extra character building, the whole scene with Ripley talking to the board, explaining what happened last time. That wasn't in the original movie. The whole scene with the sentry guns and her building more with Newt, a lot of it was cut out. It was only 17 minutes of footage, but 17 minutes really meant a lot. That's what James Cameron really wanted in the movie, but they really had to cut the running length down on there. But like I said, even in that extended version, every scene has a purpose. It helps build on the plot, helps build on the characters. I do have one major gripe, and every time I watch the movie, I just kind of like shake my head that they bring this huge ship, the Sulaco, to this planet. For I'm not sure how long the trip is because they're in hypersleep, so it must be a while. You know, it can't just be a couple of days. There's sleep there. They get there, huge ship, and everybody goes down to the planet. They don't leave anybody on the ship. There's no backup crew. There's no night crew. There's no second team, relief squad, medics, nothing. Everybody goes down, which is just a really bizarre oversight of, oh, how do we get back up if the ship gets destroyed? I don't know. I guess we don't. Like, that's kind of weird. That ends up being a big plot point. And at the same time, when they say we're overdue for a rescue in 17 days, well, what does that mean? That they're going to send someone in 17 days? Is someone going to arrive in 17 days? Because we don't know how long the trip is. If the trip is 6 months, who cares about 17 days? They're going to start their trip in 17 days. But that's the part that, like, okay, so 17 days plus 6 months. It doesn't really help much. So to me, those are some kind of plot conveniences they kind of glance over and don't explain very well. And I get it. I mean,
they didn't expect you to watch it 100 times and be on the show. And
even the first time, like, you watch it and you're like, why is everyone
James
going
Cameron
down?
Did not know that movie is going to exist and we're going to fucking cherry pick this shit.
Even Ripley herself, when she's meeting with Paul Reiser and the Gorman character, they tell her, you're not going down to the planet. You're going to stay in the ship. And she goes down on the planet with no argument whatsoever. She just goes right down. No, she doesn't even fight them. No one says, okay, you stay in the ship, or everyone just goes down. I always thought that was a little bit peculiar, especially since they have a second ship on their spaceship. There's a second drop ship. Like, why is that there if you only have one team? It's a little bit of a weird oversight, and it bothers me every time I watch it. That why is that there? Why did it set up that way? I get it, the plot convenience. It does help move the story along. If you had a backup crew, they would just come down and pick you up, and that'd be the end of the movie. But it gets interesting if you crash the ship and say, "Oh, well, we can't get another one."
I mean, I touched most of this up, but I think the screenplay, like what James Cameron did for this movie, like there's so many themes in this movie. From like the whole mother and daughter relationship, touching PTSD on these soldiers, corporate greed, and like every character has a theme, and like the Russian said, like if you need a class of how to write a movie, like this is probably a good example, like to watch, because every character has a essential piece. Every moment in the movie has a purpose, like lighting and everything. So overall, I think the script was amazing. And again, there's a reason why this movie's hailed as one of the greatest sci-fi films of all time, greatest movies of the 80s, because it has everything. It's well-rounded. Obviously, it's not a perfect movie. There are some flaws to it. I mean, there's no such thing as a perfect movie, in my opinion. But like
Gravity.
Like I was saying, there's no such thing as a perfect movie. But like how it like everything adds up, and just those little things, just you let bygones be bygones and just enjoy the ride. But the Russian, you said that you have a couple of things that you want to like nitpick about photography and editing. Before we go into like favorite moment and least moment.
Well, it's part like my disliked moment, and I
Okay.
guess it's kind of combined. But like the one
Well,
thing
I mean, let's go ahead and jump into that. That's probably the
I'm
next
gonna
topic.
start
So,
with what I didn't like. Okay, which was sound. It's gonna sound bizarre, but again, it's the Russian. Okay, the Russian has to find some shit he doesn't like. So the way that the fight works, like there's a shot, for example, the Vasquez, if I say it correctly,
Vasquez, yeah.
Vasquez character, like you see her shooting, right? It's front view, like you see her shooting, and then the next shot you see Alien who's being shot, and then shot again you see her shooting again, and then next shot again the Alien, and like I just found it like I want to see the whole thing, like I don't know, just to me like it's felt like missed opportunities, and it felt like a little bit of the cheating, like you kind of cutting these two scenes together, but I feel like they're not happening at the same time, if that makes sense. Like
They had to cheat. I know what you're talking about.
yeah,
The reason
like
there's a lot of cheating is so a lot of the alien scenes are filmed upside down. So they have to composite those together because a lot of times they're moving upside down and they're on wires to give them that weird kind of floaty weight to them. That's why they look so interesting how they move. Why they don't look human, even though they all are just people in suits.
right.
They filmed upside down, so that's very hard to get them on screen at the same time for that reason. And I agree with you. Like it's definitely broken up, but I understand why they did it.
And that's what I'm saying. Like it's just, but in 2021, you watch it and you're like, if I had to pick something, I'm saying like, this is it's this very minor inconvenience. It's just. Like
if the movie's made in 2021, they'd be like one cut every 0.1 seconds. It'd just be.
Yeah, but they have switched. I mean, but that being said, like my favorite scene is actually what they couldn't shoot, but how Cameron came up with a solution and how he designs that scene. To me, that's what makes this movie so brilliant, and that's the scene when they set up all the guns for the corridors, and when the aliens start attacking, you don't see the aliens. All you see is the screen monitor was showing how many bullets are in those guns, and like, bro, when I saw that, I was like, and the count goes down, and you hear the bullets fighting somewhere in the hallway, but you don't know what's happening. You don't know how many aliens there are. You don't know how they explode or how they're being executed, or you just have a sense. You understand what's happening, and it's up to your imagination to figure out what's happening. And I was sitting and watching, and I was like, come on, Cameron, like I want to see that corridor. I want to see what's happening there. And then the gun goes to zero, and I'm like, oh god damn it, I fucking wanted to see it. And then they switch to the next, I guess, corridor, and the gun goes down again, and all of a sudden Cameron shows you like the splashes of aliens, and I was like a little fucking kid. I was like, yes, yes, this is what I wanted to see. Thank you. I thought you're gonna like skip on that one, and I would completely understand. Like I would be total for it. It would still be a magnificent scene, but just that the way that tension is built by the director and how he delivers that, like, here, I really want you guys to see how these guns are blowing up these alien brains and how all the acid is flying all over. Here's the shot, and it's like that shot probably lasts of the aliens like maybe a few seconds, but it's so rewarding. And to me, like that's the magic of cinema. That's the magic of the director who knew how he wanted to construct the film and how he wanted the viewers to react to it. Well, at least like that's my interpretation, and my head goes off for that scene. It just like I mean for the movie which was shot so long ago, where I mean we watched Thanos snap his fingers in Iron Man and all of that, all of this craziness that cinema can produce nowadays. To me, the cleverness of that scene is just like groundbreaking. Like somebody did it in almost 40 years ago. So I'm I'm really happy to pick this movie. I'm really happy I watched it. I'm like, yeah, like that's why I love movies, and that scene is fantastic. So
yeah, I think sometimes those budgetary constraints work for the movie. It helps build the tension. You don't have to have a hallway of aliens being butchered. It wouldn't progress the movie at all. Instead, to build attention to the next part you see, and you're like, this is so cool. This is what I wanted to see. I think
what's your favorite scene?
My favorite scene is near the very end when they are defending the operations room before they make the escape into the vents. So you got all the Marines in there, and they're where they're coming from. They fall through the vents, and the firefight starts with them. I love that scene because it's a couple of different things are happening. So that's the part where kind of Hudson finally stands up, stops being a coward, and kind of stands up there and starts blasting aliens left and right and swearing at them, saying, "You motherfuckers, come on, you bastards," and shooting all of them. Love that scene, but for different reasons. So in the background, everyone else is saying, "We have to retreat to medical. We have to get out of here." And Hudson doesn't want to move. He's the only one who's still in place. So a lot of people are saying that's a moment of him being brave and standing up, but in fact, it's actually him kind of breaking down, and he's just shooting and lashing out at things that he fears, and he's not acting rationally anymore. And I think it's a really powerful and really cool moment for that character, where it's like it's misconstrued, and I think a lot of people see it as something different than what it is. And it's a very human moment that not everyone's a big brave space marine. He just broke, his mind broke, and he just started going crazy and shooting everything, and he gets grabbed in the vent and dies. But wow, that's a powerful scene to me, and it's a lot of people just look at it as like, oh look, he's brave, he went out to kill the aliens. Like, no, his mind's gone. He was totally good. He snapped, and I think it's a really cool scene you don't see often in movies like that, especially in that way where it's like mixed in terms of what does it mean, what's happening with the character. That whole room, it's a small, tiny room. They filmed that, and wherever they shoot 30 aliens in there, and it's such a rewarding scene after the whole rest of them where you don't see them shooting or fighting back much. That's their standoff. And I think it's shot brilliantly. James Cameron inserts white frames a lot of times in the gun muzzle flashes to make the whole screen turn white for a second to give you that effect of a big effect muzzle flash. And I think it really services the movie well. The guns really put off a lot of force when they're shooting, which is really cool. That's definitely my favorite scene in the movie.
I mean, for me,
do you have a least favorite scene? Do you have something that you're like, oh, this shit needs to be cut out of here?
There's not a whole lot of weak scenes. Like I said, everything has a purpose in there. I would say that probably the most poorly acted scene in the movie that always kind of bothers me every time I see it is after they assemble the Marines on the deck and they bring Ripley out there to talk to them and give them a report about the aliens. Gorman goes hard on them, says, "Okay, I want you guys to do this, this, and this by this hour, and this by this hour." And the acting is not great of people being grumbling and upset about what they have to do. It's one of the first scenes they shot for the movie, and man, it is not good. It's really, really lame when you rewatch it. The pilot, Pharaoh, her face and the way she acts, it's not good at all. That, I wish that scene wasn't there. It's really, really poor acting. It's probably a bad take, and it's kept it. And it always bothers me every time I see it because it's just, for the rest of the movie, it's really well acted and everyone has a good role. That one just really sucks. It's bad.
I did notice that at the beginning of the movie. Yeah. You mentioned it. Yeah.
I guess I skipped that one.
It's like a Saturday morning special. It's really cheesy acting, and I guess they ran out of time. Okay, but it's good. Next scene.
It's like a second unit scene. It's let's just put it there in the cutting room. Yeah. I mean, for me, I don't really have a least favorite scene. I really just sit down and enjoy this movie. But my favorite moment is the third act. When Ripley is on the power loader and she's fighting the mother alien, and comes the famous quote. Get your hands off her, you goddamn bitch.
Yeah.
Or something famous like that. Word that you butchered. Oh.
Yeah.
Killing me.
What's the line? What's the
line?
Her, bitch.
Get away from her, you goddamn bitch. Yeah. Yeah. Get away from her. That's why I was that's why I said I don't know exactly. But yeah. I just love that scene.
Ruben.
I mean, that's why we bring the expert in here. Okay, that's why he's here to correct us. But I just love that climax of that because we have this mother-daughter relationship building, and finally Ripley at the end's no, I'm gonna save Newt. We can't leave her alone. It's she's every mother protecting a cub, or a lioness protecting her cub.
Well, look from the perspective of the aliens. She.
I mean, it's the same thing. Yeah, she burned all her babies, and
it's tough, of course.
The queen broke the truce. That's why.
Yeah.
Remember, Ripley says, "I'm going to burn your babies if you don't leave me alone." And the queen says, "Okay, you can go." And then she has to kill Ripley. So that's what Ripley said.
I thought it was opposite. I thought Ripley just looks at her and is like, fuck you, bitch, and just
No, so
starts,
she shoots the flamethrower in the air and then points at the X, saying, "This is what this weapon does."
and
And
then
the
the egg,
Queen looks at the drone, says, "Okay, you can go." And then
and she
the
go,
egg opens up right next to Ripley, and she does that face. She tilts her head to the side and gives it like, "Oh,
oh,
fuck
Yeah.
wait,
face."
but the egg opens up like on, you think, on Mother's command, or it just randomly opened up? I thought it's opened up like.
No, I'm pretty sure it's on command. It's a psychic alien queen. I'm pretty sure she can like.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
If
like
that's
this was
the only
like a
thing-
backstab. This
I
was like,
thought
"Oh,
it
you can
was
go."
just like-
Psych.
Okay, I thought it was opening like on its own, like just. I'm
No,
ready.
'cause remember those eggs open up and the facehugger like jumps out and jumps on people's faces.
Right. Yeah.
It was a
Yeah, the
backstab.
Queen had every intention of trying to
So,
grab.
I love
Ripley,
that when Sigourney Weaver just makes that face. I'm like, "Oh fuck, no, you didn't do that." Like it's just
Oh,
tilts
no,
her head
you
just
didn't.
everything. I
No,
love
no,
it.
you
It's so
didn't.
good.
No, you didn't. Mm-mm.
All right. I don't think you
Not
did
in my
that.
house. But yeah, I love that that third act. You know, when they introduce, I think it's just like this movie just expanded the Alien universe. You know, Ridley Scott did an amazing thing introducing, the creature, right, and these characters. But like Aliens, like this sequel just expands so much more. We get to see the Queen, which it's obviously like this big ass alien, like like you come across something like that, you either shit your pants or you fight, right?
Why don't do you both? Like,
Oh, you can do both, exactly, yeah. But like, and then you have Ripley, turn this character from the first movie into something much more stronger in this one, and to like face that fear. Because she was, obviously we mentioned that she was suffering some like PTSD from the events of the first film, and she was afraid of these creatures, and like she has to overcome that fear to protect Newt, and it's just amazing, like that whole thing, like how far a mother will go to protect her child, and like you mentioned, it's the same thing with the Queen alien. How far would she go to protect? So yeah, Ripley burns all her eggs, and the Queen's like, "Oh no, you're not gonna get away that easily. I'm gonna hang on to the ship and try to kill you in your own territory, right?" And then we have that climatic power loader fight scene, and until she kills the Queen off in space, right? But again, I mean that's why this is for me one of the greatest sci-fi films there is.
And another thing, like I just wanted to like post-scriptum, the character of the android. Like nowadays, it's like if it's android, he has some kind of fucking programming or design. He's gonna do something bad. Like every time I see like an android in the movie or a robot, I'm waiting for them to do something which they're not supposed to do. But here, no, you got the android who does what he's supposed to do and does it best. And then his line at the end, like, not bad for a human. Like, bravo. Like, it doesn't take a fucking genius to... Well, it does take a genius to write aliens. But I'm saying, like, just be true to your characters. Just be true what you set out. Like, he says, like, I'm a new model. I'm upgraded. I do not malfunction. And I'm not going to do anything bad. And he doesn't. He does everything what he's supposed to do. Dies at the end, but...
To your point, though, is in the first movie, that's exactly what happened. But it's not a malfunction. It's the company, has orders for Ash to,
Sure.
get the specimen, whatever.
Yeah, it was in his
you're
program.
Right.
Yeah.
This was basically a double kind of pull and fast one over the viewer. Like you expect this android to be bad again because they were bad in the first movie, and Ripley has distrust of the android, and rightly so. So I love the fact they ends up being like the most dependable good guy. I think that's fantastic.
Right.
Like,
yeah,
it would be easy to make him, "Oh, sorry, Ripley," and close the airlock door, and I'm going to leave you here to die or whatever. He could be another Burke, but no, his character is perfect in the film. He's just weird enough, but then also just friendly enough.
I agree, and especially gives that twist. Obviously Ripley didn't trust androids because of the events of the first film, and to have that twist of having this reliable character be the one that saves her, it's just, again, a great story writing.
it was a rewarding experience from my end. Like watching that movie, it's good. You feel good about it.
I mean, obviously, for those who are still listening, though, after Aliens, Alien 3 came out, which was David Fincher's first film. It was panned by critics. It was a very heavy studio control film. Like Fincher had no say whatsoever in that film. and then they made after that Alien Resurrection came out years later, and that was it for that franchise until they did Alien vs Predator and Alien vs Predator Requiem, and that didn't pan out. And then Ridley Scott tried to explore like the history of or the origins of the xenomorphs with movies with Prometheus and Alien Covenant, which were box office disasters to this day. And since then, I mean, Neil Blomkamp was supposed to direct a fifth Alien movie that was supposed to follow the events of Aliens of this one. Ignoring everything from Alien 3 and beyond, and it was supposed to be a direct sequel of Aliens. I think it had Michael Biehn and the storyboard returning. Sigourney Weaver was in line to return, and then Fox just shut down the idea. They're like, "No, we're not pursuing this." And it's right now in the development hell. Like, it's still blondly now. Neil Blomkamp has stated that he really wants to direct an Alien movie if it's given the opportunity. So we'll see. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, but for what I've heard,
So what happened was it wasn't Fox that shut down. It was Ridley Scott. He didn't want to do that. And what really gets my goat at this time is so they were going to bring back Michael Biehn. They had already concept art for his character and everything. He was going to have that burns on his face and stuff, makeup and everything. They already even had a photograph of the makeup job. They were pretty far along concepting this. They were also talking about bringing back Bill Paxton. That was before he died, because the fate of the whole thing, the explosion, a bit nebulous. And Bill Paxton was all for coming back, in some capacity. And I was really excited for that. Neil Blomkamp, wanted to make that movie, but Ridley Scott said, "No, you can't make this. I'm making these prequel movies, and I'm the only one going to be controlling this right now." Because Ridley Scott has some sort of senile dementia breakdown after seeing those movies. I'm like, oh my god, and reading his diatribe about them. So what happened was Bill Paxton. After that happened, he's like, okay, well, I'm going to go have my heart procedure then because we're not filming these movies and I'm not being part of it. And he died on the operating table due to complications in heart surgery. So even though maybe it's not entirely fair, I blame Ridley Scott for Bill Paxton's death.
Fair enough.
I know it wasn't fair. If he had filmed Alien 5, Bill Paxton would probably be alive right now.
He'll probably be alive. He would have postponed that heart surgery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, so are we boycotting this new movie then with directed by Ridley Scott? Isn't it the
I think what Alex is trying to say, we're boycotting any Alien movie that Ridley Scott is attached to.
Okay. I thought we were boycotting Ridley Scott, period.
No. I think Ridley Scott should not touch an Alien movie ever after Covenant and Prometheus.
Well, they're making a TV show next year.
But is he involved in some sort of way?
My God, I hope not.
No, I think it's from the creators of Legion.
That's a weird show.
Yeah,
I hope
that's what I've read.
Involvement with it, but
I mean, probably they'll give Ridley Scott like producer credit because he.
Sure.
But I think it's
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I think the show is being developed by the same guys that did Fargo and Legion, which are very successful shows for FX. Yeah. So we'll see.
I'm not optimistic, but been let down to me. There has been a successful entry to the Aliens franchise in any sort of film capacity.
Probably since this movie, yeah.
Yes, 35 years.
Yeah.
What has kept this franchise very much afloat, though, are that the novels and the games have all been like stellar. Like the Alien novels really explore the universe more. They kind of wrote a parallel story that they wrote another story as if Hicks and Newt survived with different names, and that's a really fantastic series of books following them. And a lot of those were cannibalized into the AVP movies, although very poorly, unfortunately. They took only bits and pieces of them. But yeah, that franchise kept alive by the story still and the characters still being great from the original movies, and some of the video game and book adaptations have been really, really, really good. But yeah, it's tough that there hasn't been a good movie in this franchise in a long time. I mean, you had Alien Resurrection, which was Joss Whedon, and boy, that was a piece of
you can tell Joss Whedon's name's in there.
Oh yeah, like joke.
You can tell
they're all bad.
Yeah, you can tell.
No, so
the Whedonisms.
Yeah, I'm unfortunately not optimistic at this point, even though I'm such a big fan. I mean, I got a full-size Pulse rifle hanging on my wall over there. I'm wearing an Aliens t-shirt right now. Love the series, but it's hard to be a fan sometimes, you know.
Yeah, it hurts. Well, I think that is it. Any final thoughts for the audience before we start wrapping up? Alex, you're the special guest. Final thoughts for the movie. What would you like to tell the audience who are watching if they've never seen this movie?
If you haven't seen this movie before, you have to watch it. This is like the grandfather of all sci-fi action movies in terms of doing it right. This movie's aged so phenomenally. I wouldn't say don't worry about it being from 1986. I know some movies from the 80s age poorly or have some early green screening, which doesn't do me any favors. This is a movie you can show someone of any age, over 17, of course, and it's easy to love. This movie has very, very few weak spots. It's aged magnificently, not just in terms of special effects, but writing characters way ahead of its time with strong female characters, no forced romance or anything. It reads very much like a modern film, which makes it easy to recommend to anyone for any reason. I'd also say that if you're not a fan of action movies, I'd still highly recommend it because while it is often billed as a science fiction action movie, the movie itself, for about being almost 3 hours long, only has about 4 major action scenes. Most of the film is dialogue, setting up scenes, tension, horror. It's a great movie, but even the trailers show it as being nonstop action. But really, that's every action scene in the movie right there, and I love it for that. It's a mastercrafted movie of science fiction.
Perfect. Bye, Goff, you got anything for the audience?
I mean, no, Alex pretty much just nailed it. I remembered it as an action movie, and when I was watching it, for the first hour or so, there's not even a gun being drawn, and for some reason I remember it as when I first watched it 20 or so years ago, that it was filled with action. But I guess I watched the theatrical trailer and it was shorter, and that's how my mind remembered it. It was a lot of action, and the only thing that I remember from the first viewing is when the alien came out of that lady, on the wall. I remember that being freaked out, and I don't like horror movies, so to me, I felt like that was a scary movie. So, but okay, I survived in the second go. I really enjoyed it, and if you haven't seen it, but you're probably not watching the show if you haven't seen it at this point. But yeah, definitely recommend.
So yeah, definitely recommend. Like Alex and the Russian have said, it's a great film. It's definitely deserving of you watching. I'm gonna put it in one of those before you die, you must watch this film because it's definitely on there. Totally recommend it. It's available to rent or own on any digital platform. The 4K versions of these films should be released next year by Fox/Disney. They're in that process of mastering the other films. Alien, which is the one directed by Ridley Scott, is already available in 4K platforms, both in physical and digital. And again, definitely check it out. And so before we wrap up, I want to say for those who are still with us, remember to check out our latest episode, which was on Donnie Darko. It premiered last week. Let us know. And next week, we are actually back. Next week, we're actually going to be back on, again, Thursday night due to on some scheduling conflicts in a way. So back on Thursday at 8 p.m., we're doing our next October theme horror / movie. And we're going to be talking about the indie horror film It Follows. This was picked by the Russian, and it's
of course.
It's he recommended this movie to me last year, and I watched it and I loved it. So that's enough to say. So get ready for next week's episode. We're going to be talking about It Follows.
And come
watch It Follows. Alex, thank you so much for joining us. We hope you can come back later on in the season. I think you're signed in for the Matrix, so we'll have you back for the Matrix.
If you need Matrix, if you need Underworld, Starship Troopers, I'll be here.
Starship Troopers is going to be on one of the next Poly for Season 3, so we'll keep you in mind. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. Team, for those who are watching us, remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitch, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook. Movie by Podcast. We are on your favorite podcast stations. If you are on the go, stuck in traffic, and you just want to listen to us, check us out on your favorite podcast station. With that being said, I'll see you all next week.